resolution pledging the full faith and credit of the county for
Thank you, Commissioner.
the drain bonds. We have
Not the money.
our
What?
Mr. Baker, welcome. Explain what you have for us today.
Thank you, sir. First, wanted to let you know that Candace Miller is in Washington, D.C. at the Great Lakes Commission, so she is unable to attend. But basically, this evening we're seeking board approval to do a couple things. One, to authorize the Public Works Commissioner through the MID, the Macomb Interceptor Drainage District, to refinance, or in other words, refund existing drain bonds up to $90 million. That's in order to save money with lower interest rates. We estimate as of right now, we could save about $2 million if we refinance those existing bonds. Number two is authority for the Public Works Commissioner, again through the MID, to issue new bonds, and that is up to $150 million. And that is to pay for the sinkhole repair, which is phase one, currently doing that, and a possible phase two, which is the lining repair of the remaining portion of the interceptor. So the total is up to $240 million, but again, that's a not to exceed number, and that's typically done to save attorney fees and to allow more flexibility once we're in the bond market to properly size the bond. So again, we estimate phase one cost, which is around $70 million to repair the sinkhole and the pipe. We're still working on sizing the bond based on a number of changing factors, our cash flow needs and timing of possible state grants and appropriations that we are in hope for. And this bond will also then go back to pay the county. As you know, last month you approved the short-term borrowing of some funds to Public Works to help pay for some interim bills. So we have yet to bid out or make any decisions on the second phase, which is phase two. That'll come later after the mid-board decides, and the mid-board just approved a contract for an engineering firm to go out there and make inspections on the entire mid-system. So we'll wait to see what that engineering firm reports back to, and then we'll also communicate to the 11 mid-communities. The drain bonds are repaid by the 11 mid-communities through their sewer charges. So it's not something that the county has to pay for, so there's no effect on the general fund. The county is, however, pledging their full faith and credit for the new bonds due to the county's outstanding bond rating. And of course, in the unlikely event that 11 communities do not make the payments or default, which is very unlikely, but it's a necessary condition to issuing the bonds in order to get successful pricing, get the best pricing we can with that pledge. And the county has historically pledged their full faith and credit. There's never been a default. So again, we're on a very tight timeline for these bonds. A lot of moving pieces, but with your approval today, on a short notice, we can remain on this very tight timeline. Again, just Monday, the mid-board approved the sinkhole repair contract and a similar bond resolution that you are now we're asking you to authorize. And we also have several communities approving resolutions just next week to provide necessary financial information on the bonds. So after this resolution is approved by the board, we're distributing documents to our bond rating agencies just later this week. And we have bond rating calls scheduled in 2 weeks, and the bonds are to be sold next month. So you can see it's a very tight timeline. Just to give you a brief update on the sinkhole project itself, you've probably been reading the papers. Again, Monday, the mid-board approved a contract to repair the interceptor. The long-term bypass is scheduled to be completed when the new contractor takes over. So we haven't lost any time, as work, of course, can't begin until the long-term bypass is complete. And that's scheduled, the new contractor, next week. They should be on the job site. We are on target to complete the sinkhole repair by the end of September. So then we can bid out and repair the road so 15 Mile can get open before the end of November. That is our current timeline. And again, I mentioned we just issued a $1.5 million contract funded by a SAW grant that will go towards the inspection of the entire mid to see if we do a possible phase 2 or not, to completely reline certain sections to prevent a further sinkhole. So with that, we appreciate your consideration under the tight time frame. We do have the county's bond counsel available and the financial advisor as well to answer any questions.
I have a couple of questions. First, just a technical matter. We've got the resolution. Does the resolution speak to both of those bond issues at the same time?
Correct.
Normally, we have those separated because they're distinct subject matter. Why don't you come up and speak to us, Mr. Bond Counsel? We've never done it this way before, so I was just curious as to why we're doing it now.
Hi, I'm John Cammons with the law firm of Foster, Swift, Collins and Smith. I'm
Yes.
pleased to answer that question.
Yes.
The bond issue will be one bond issue, one series called Series 2017A for multiple purposes, which are in part to refinance or refund the 2010 bonds. And the particular amount, whether it's all or a portion, will depend on market conditions at the time of pricing, whatever is economically warranted. But also, the second purpose of this same single series of bonds is the new money. And I don't know what may have been done before, but there's an advantage to do a single series of bonds in that there will be one, there'll be different maturities, obviously, and different maturities have different fixed interest rates on them, but fundamentally, the underwriters will be marketing not to buyers of bonds in the marketplace, do you want the refunding issue or the new money issue? It'll be one. And the fact is that the repayment through special assessments against 11 communities will be based in part on the 2010 assessments that were apportioned then, because those bonds that are still outstanding will still be payable from special assessments in those shares. But the portion of the new bonds that is allocable to the refunding of any of those old bonds will also bear that same 2010 apportionment shares. And the fact is that for the new money, there has been determined, and there will be special assessment proceedings under the drain code, what the respective percentage shares of the 11 communities should be, and that's going to be based under appropriate calculation methods under the drain code, which I think are beyond the scope of this meeting. But fundamentally, the assessed communities will be getting charged to pay in annual installments, partly at the old 2010 rates and partly at the 2017 rates. But it's, in terms of marketing bonds, it's much simpler to market just one series of bonds.
Okay. You're paid to provide the expertise, so that's probably a good thing. Who's going to assess? Who's actually going to do the actual assessment? That'd be Public Works. Be doing the actual assessments and not the local
Under
communities?
Chapter 20 of the Drain Code, the special assessment apportionment shares are originally tentatively approved by the Drainage Board for this mid-drainage district. And then there's publication of a newspaper and a public hearing notice, that is, and ultimately there's a public hearing at which the 11 communities who are assessed at large are able to be heard. And then the Drainage Board, which is a 3-member board under the Drain Code for this drainage district, and the chair of that is the Public Works Commissioner, is going to have to approve a final order of apportionment, which classically is consistent with the original tentative apportionments, but it might change as a result of the public hearing. So it's entirely going to be done by the Drainage Board, the 3-person Drainage Board.
The apportionment may change, but the assessments will be the same. I mean,
No, I'm merely saying
what if there's a
the
disagreement about the apportionment? Then what happens?
The Drainage Board, before they confirm the final apportionment order, should take into account everything they hear in that public hearing.
Well, what if there's a conflict?
That's not for me to determine. Legally, they will determine it, but I will tell you that right now the calculation is based strictly on a 5-year historical flow of usage of this particular drain.
So that flow percentages have changed just a bit from 2010 to 2017. That would be the only change.
Wouldn't be a significant number then, probably. Okay, thank you. Other commissioners, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before bond council leaves, real quick, what percentage are you anticipating?
Are you
What's the
asking
market bearing right now?
what interest rate?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
sir.
okay, I think that's really a question. If any, we'll answer it to the financial advisor, Mr. Benzinski.
No, just right now, what is it bearing the ones that are going right now? What do you guys
Good
anticipate?
afternoon, Bobby Benzinski, the municipal advisor. Right now, if we were to refund the mid bonds without adding the new money to the transaction, the rate would be somewhere right around 3%, because we're not extending that out, okay? But because we're adding the additional money, the bonds will go out for 25 years, but we won't extend the refunding portion out any longer than what it was out before. And the rate is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 3.25 or so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another question?
Please, Mr.
Ms. Baker, if I can ask you a question, please. I obviously, we have to fix this. We have to take care of it. I get it. What I need, before full board or before finance, I do need some information, just to be fair to the constituents. As I know this is divided up amongst 11 communities. I know it's divided up amongst the users. $240,000. I don't know how many users that is. I don't know what that calculates, what it's going to be at the increase on an average user. But I think this is something that I need to know before I can vote on this at finance or full board, to say we anticipate an average user to go up $10 a month or $800 a month.
Yep.
I need to have this information before I could put my final yes on this.
I can tell you right now.
That'd be a good thing.
Okay. First off, the 90 million is refinancing existing
It's already
debt.
there. I'm talking about
Already
the
there.
240
So it's
possible.
150. If we do both phases, 1 and 2, we're only definitely doing 1. But worst case scenario, 150 million.
Okay?
That spread over 25 years, right? Because that's the bond. It will result, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but about $50 to $60 a year for the average homeowner. However, that's for 25 years.
Sure. So right now, we're looking at $60 per user on the sewer system.
Correct.
We're anticipating, I know we
Per,
can't lock
per
it.
house. Per home,
Yeah.
not
Yes.
per individual.
Per billing unit,
Yeah,
or whatever it may be.
Average
From a
home.
condo to a whatever.
an average home.
An average home,
If you use more, no, per year.
per year. Okay. All right, that actually,
And assuming that's, we do phase 2.
right. Okay. All right, no, that helps.
I'm giving you the worst case.
No, and you know what? That's what everyone's going to ask. So thank you
Yep.
very much.
That's right. So that would be the worst case scenario. If we borrow 150 million to do phase 1 and phase 2, that's how much people's average sewer bill would increase, $50, $60 a year. But that's on top of already high bills, you know, we understand that.
Absolutely, and everybody's already frustrated with that. But now on the bright side, the $90 million refinance is for how many years maximum, did bond council say?
That transaction was issued in 2010 and had a 25-year life, so it's out to 2035. And based upon interest rates as of March 2nd, there was an approximately just over $2 million savings over between now, 2017, and 2035.
Okay, I guess, Mr. Chairman, it would be great, and I don't know what other bonds, because there's obviously other things with the system for the users in these communities, if we can talk about the maturity rate of those particular items when they come up, which will be a reduction to the user. Here's the max possibility of $60, but by this time, you're going to come down $13. So if you smooth factored it, because I think they're going to want to know that.
Yeah, interest rates went up a quarter point today. So that just, it's relevant. Next is Commissioner Dujay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This all makes sense from a financial standpoint as we're talking about it here. But once this gets out into the real world, people are going to say, you mean this sinkhole cost us, the original estimates were $60 to $70 million, and now we're up to $240 million. I know it's not correct. You know it's not correct. But what are we supposed to say to the folks that are going to ask us that might not be that well versed in bond proceedings?
I would stick to Mr. Carabelli, I think, put it succinctly in terms of what the effect is on them. And a finer point, technically, you're authorizing Candace Miller and the mid-board to authorize these bonds. So you're backing them, but she's actually taking the heat, or the board itself, for actually issuing these bonds and assessing these communities. But you are backstopping it so that we can get the best bond rating and the lowest interest rate possible. But the only 70 million or so is this initial repair. So if we only do that, it's half of that amount. But I think it's been in the paper that, you know, we're continuing to communicate and letting people know what the total cost of this project is. And this is the best way to finance it and fund it.
Well, I understand how you're going to. I still think that after everything's said and done, yes, I agree with Commissioner Carabelli, but the question is going to come up for $240 million.
Right.
Now, the percentage rate was 3.25%, somebody said,
Correct.
and this is all 25-year bonds, correct?
Correct.
So the 2010 $90 million will be paid off in 2035, correct?
Correct.
And this, what is it, 150 million is going to be 42. Does phase two, how much of all of this does phase two cover?
Phase two, we estimate, and again, we haven't gotten in there to expect
If we do phase two,
75 million is the current estimate. So of that 150, about half of that, 75 million, is phase one, which we've already committed to. And the other 75 million is an estimate for phase two.
okay. This is going to take a lot of explaining to not only, I don't know about this board, but everybody outside of this board. Because this was serious to begin with, and now it's now it's costly serious.
True.
So I don't envy anybody's position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Dujay. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Brian. Hi, John. Listen, so I can probably break this down a little simpler if you want to explain it to your constituents. I'm doing a new house loan. I had an old loan there that I could refinance and roll into my new loan for a lower rate. So that's the part of it. The new house loan, I might build an extra garage along with it. We're not sure, so I'm take the loan out for this much just in case I might not use the whole thing. The first part of it is for the needed repairs and to pay off the old loan with a much better interest rate. It seems like that's kind of the gist of things right here. The Foster Swift, I just want to talk to the new commissioners that don't realize Foster Swift is the county's bond counsel also, and the Public Works commissioner did pick them as their bond counsel also, which was, she basically made the point, no sense in redoing all the work that we just did here at the commission to vet them and pick them as our bond counsel, just so everybody realizes that that's how Foster Swift came into the mix here. And last, Brian, I know that we're still at 70 million, but I know that the maybe we're at 15 or so million in emergency money, and we're at 34-ish or 33-ish for the fix as far as the bid that we just awarded. So that's, really under 50. Are we expecting more? Or are we just kind of keeping that number just to be safe?
Well, Yeah, so we're at a firm 65.
We are.
We are.
Okay, I missed
Because it was
some of the-
33, and we probably had a little shy, 25 that we've already committed to, and then we've got the property demolitions. We haven't been out the road yet, and there's also unknowns. So we're speaking to 70. We're hoping it's going to be less than that. But
That's
we're at a
fine.
firm 65 for sure.
I didn't know we were at a firm 25 other than that. I thought
Yeah.
we were at 15 other than, that's
Yep.
fine. Yeah, that was my only question, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a new commissioner, so I have some questions, and forgive me if they appear simple, but the resolution before us is to provide our full faith and credit. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
That's correct.
Okay. And my understanding is you need that pledge in order for you to go out on the bond market and try to get the bond. You can't even begin to do what you're going to do unless you get the full faith of the county behind it.
That backstopping helps us get a better interest rate.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, thank you for the update on the status of the sinkhole. And you indicated that there's new contractors coming in. Were there problems with the old contractors, or why the switch now?
Well, the switch was in order to get competitive bidding. Before we came into office, a firm was already chosen, and it was on a time and material basis. And that was a necessary thing that had to get done in order to have a rapid response. But then once we stabilized, started dewatering it, it gave us time to actually bid out this contract. And so we awarded it on Monday to the lowest, most responsive bidder who earned that contract.
Will the engineers stay in place?
Correct. AEW will remain.
Okay. And what is the status on making the homeowners whole, the 3 houses?
Yep, so
Is-
on Monday, there was an approval to make offers that Chairman Smith and Veronica Kleinfeld approved as well. Those offers will be going out within days, and then it'll be up to them to accept it or seek additional appraisals. So we're very close to not only making them offers, but then also reimbursing the residents who are out of their homes for that period of time.
Okay. And those were based on appraisals of the homes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Just a quick question for you, Brian. Federal and state funds, have we received any? Is there any, do you have any idea of how much we could get, if any?
So just yesterday, the Michigan, forgot the board, administrative board approved a $2 million grant. So we've been told about that. I know they're working on either a state supplemental or an earmark or line item for next year's budget. We're asking, I think we've been somehow told maybe around 3 million. We're asking for more. So those are the only things I know. And the road commission is also working on road funding and things like that. We also, 100,000 from the state for emergency responses, not only for Fraser, Clinton, and ourselves as well. So those are the only things that we know right now, but we've got many other hoppers in the fire in order to seek funds.
I thought I'd heard about the 2 million, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I just wanted to
Yeah,
double
we
check.
just got that yesterday.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Very quickly, now I'm done with serving on the board as of this week, so Commissioner Myjack will be serving from here on out with respect to this one. I sit on a couple. I know that Commissioner Toko is going to be sitting on one because I've seen the maps, and then there's one I'm not sure about, but it looks like I'm on most of them still. Anyway, I just wanted everybody to know it's Commissioner Myjack now instead of me. Thank you.
Very good.
Point of information on that particular point, Mr. Chair. When will we get notice of when our rotation will come up?
That's a good question.
So regular standing meetings, you've already been notified. Some meet maybe once a year, some meet twice a year, some don't meet for years. So as soon as we know there's a meeting, we will first we have to look at the sewer map to figure out which of the commissioner has the greatest share of the apportionment. But as soon as we know that, we will let the board office know which commissioner. We've notified some that have standing regular monthly meetings, and we've notified those commissioners.
And once we receive that information, we'll share it with all the board, so we all know who's on what district. And
Are the meetings still at 8 a.m. at the
We've had them at 10 a.m.
Okay.
at Public Works office, but you'll definitely be notified if you're one of the affected.
I think hers is a standing one. If I may, if you could, like as fast as possible, just let people know that they're on them.
Yeah, you should
And then
have.
we could go from there.
I checked, and I thought they said Barb told everyone who was on a standing one, but I will confirm that.
Yeah,
You
I
haven't been
didn't receive
notified?
notice of that, no.
Okay.
Thank you for letting us know, Commissioner, appreciate it. So, any other speakers? So, we're gonna refinance these bonds at $60 a month cost is what the cost of the user will be?
50 to 60 a year.
A year,
for the
$5
average
a month.
homeowner. Correct.
$5 a month. It's what it
Correct.
costs the users of the system to repair the sinkhole,
Correct.
at least up to so far.
Now, we're not highlighting that, we're pleading our poverty case. That doesn't sound like a lot, so I know there's two, ends of the spectrum. I'm saying it's 150 million, and, over 25 years, with all the interest, that's 250 million. We cannot afford this, give
I'm
us
a
some money.
salesman, I'm going
But-
local. Thank you,
Depends on the audience, I guess.
thank you. All right, thank you. We have a motion. We need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Tocco. All those in, vote, please. Vote, all those who want to make sure they vote on the machine, vote yes. Those who don't? Vote test is 10 to 1. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming down.